Brutal True Scary Stories, Dark Rainy Nights That Haunt You Forever Volume 390 Midnight Tales. As lightning split the sky in jagged flashes, a darkness deeper than the storm lay shrouded in the little town of Waverly. Rain pounded the streets like hammers on a frantic drum, while shadows whispered secrets only the brave dared to hear. It was said that every midnight, a specter wandered through the abandoned park, searching for the warmth of a soul lost to the clutches of despair. The air felt thick with something wild and electric, a sensation that twisted stomachs and raised hair on the backs of necks. Even the bravest could hardly face the wails that drifted through the trees, echoing like the cries of a heart broken long ago. Maddie, curious and restless, peered down her darkened street, her heart racing. The lights flickered, threatening to go out altogether. She had heard the stories, strange sights, chilling events of people never returning from those late-night strolls. The sense of wet earth and petrichor slithered in through her open window, each drop of rain seeming to bubble with its own mystery, promising untold tales of horror and fear. She shivered, knees weak like thin branches in the storm, but that whisper of intrigue tugged at her. What if she could uncover the truth behind the haunting? What if she could face whatever was lurking? As she stepped outside, the air crackled with an intensity that matched the storm. A howl echoed in the distance, piercing like glass. Was it the wind? Or something worse? Maddie's feet moved almost of their own accord, guiding her deeper into the inky blackness of the park. Each step squelched in the mud as the rain poured heavier, cloaking the world in a slick, shimmering layer. Trees loomed above, ancient and twisted, branches stretching out like skeletal fingers. Then came the sound, a soft dragging noise, like something heavy being pulled across the ground. Maddie's breath hitched, a lump in her throat forming as her eyes darted around, searching, expecting horror to manifest in every shadow. A flash of lightning illuminated the shape of figure, white and translucent, barely there but undeniably present. It stood still, staring straight at her, its face hauntingly familiar. The world froze for a moment, the rain paused, and in that silence, a sudden rush of dread washed over her, filling her with an urge to flee. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. But the moment was gone, the storm resumed its fury, and the shape shifted. Was it reaching out, or was it just a figment of her fear? Maddie's heart raced in her chest, like a wild creature desperate for escape. What did it want? The air was electric again, alive with unanswered questions. Shadows danced, and a chill traveled down her spine as that familiar face began to fade into darkness. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. What had she stumbled into? What were the dark secrets the storm held? The night was far from over, and whatever truth awaited her could either save or condemn her forever. Maddie's instincts screamed at her to turn back, but her feet felt glued to the ground, her breath coming in shallow, ragged gasps. The figure swayed like a candle in the wind, uncertainty radiating from it. A flash revealed the eyes, a depthless void, two dark pits that seemed to pull her in, promising answers but cloaked in despair. The storm raged on, the downpour drenching her coat, the cold seeping into her bones. A crack echoed through the night, louder than the howling wind, and in that moment of chaos, she made a choice. She stepped forward, driven by a primal curiosity that eclipsed her fear. What if the specter was not merely a ghost, but the key to unlocking the truth about the town's haunted past? As she moved closer, the figure began to solidify, its outline sharpening against the darkness. Maddie's pulse quickened, each heartbeat a reminder that she stood at the threshold of something she couldn't yet comprehend. The rain continued to hammer down, but now the myriad raindrops began to form patterns on the ground, swirling away from her like they were responding to the presence of the figure. Maddie. The name floated on the air, a sound like dried leaves scratching against pavement, eerie and unsettling. It sent a shockwave through her, anchoring her feet to the muck. "You came. Who are you?" Maddie managed to whisper, her voice barely rising above the tempest. The spectral figure tilted its head as if considering her question, pity etched into its translucent features, and Maddie's heart sank. This was no ordinary spirit lost to time, this was a soul burdened, a soul that carried the weight of tragedy. "Help me." The word sighed out like smoke, wrapping around her mind with an icy grip. Please. Before she could respond, the air thickened, and the colors of the night began to twist. The spectre's form shimmered, revealing a heart-wrenching scene, a flash of a family, laughter and sunlight, then suddenly a car screeching, twisting metal, and finally, silence. The images burned in her mind, piercing her with each glimpse of happiness turned to sorrow. Maddie staggered back, the truth clawing at her conscience. This was not just a haunting, it was a plea, a desperate cry from a soul trapped in a cycle of loss. The storm was an echo of the despair that lingered, not just for one, but for all who had walked through this park. "Maddie," the voice called again, shattering her thoughts. "Find them. You must find the truth." "What truth?" she cried, frustration mingling with her fear. "What do you want me to do?" With that, the figure flickered, its face morphing into countless other strangers, friends, figures she recognized and some she didn't. Each face told a story of grief, all bleeding into one. Her heart raced, the meaning swirling around her mind, but before she could process it, another flash of lightning illuminated the park, and the pitiless shadows began to close in. The figure's mournful expression was the last she saw before the storm's fury accelerated, the rain transforming into a torrential wall that threatened to swallow her whole. In that moment, something deep inside her shifted. It was both a gift and a cursed knowledge that would irrevocably change her. The rain fell harder, but she could hear whispering, faint but undeniable. They were all calling her name. What were their stories? And what price would she pay to set them free? With a gasp, she took a step back, her heart racing, eyes wide. Could she truly unravel the tangled threads of their past? The wind howled like an enraged beast, but amid the chaos, a flicker of hope ignited within her. Then the shadows poured in, and Maddie felt them seeping into her very being, and just like that, her world went black. What awaited in the darkness? Maddie was sucked into an abyss, the cold engulfing her like an icy wave crashing over a helpless shore. She tried to scream, but the darkness swallowed the sound, leaving her with a terrifying silence. It was as if her mind was trapped in a void, the memories of the faces she had seen swirling chaotically like autumn leaves caught in a windstorm. Suddenly, prickles of light began to emerge, a flicker here, a spark there. The darkness dissipated slowly, revealing a scene that felt both familiar and foreign. She found herself standing in a dimly lit room, the air thick with dust. Boxes were haphazardly strewn about, remnants of a life overshadowed by sorrow. Her heart pounded. The walls were lined with photographs, their edges yellowed with age. She stepped closer, her fingers brushing against the frames. Each picture showcased moments of joy and laughter, families at the beach, children blowing out birthday candles, a couple smiling under mistletoe. But sadness loomed like a storm cloud, the eyes of those captured seemed to plead for understanding, for something left unsaid. "Maddie," the voice echoed in her mind like an unending mantra, urging her to look closer at the images. She squinted at one photograph in particular, her breath hitching in her throat. The family appeared happier than any of the others. There was a little girl with wild curls and sparkling eyes, her grin the brightest. Maddie's heart twisted. The girl looked just like her, only younger, untouched by time. "Who are you?" she whispered to the picture, the words hanging in the air like smoke. "The past is not dead," a voice intoned, echoing through the room as if the shadows themselves were speaking. "It feeds off the unresolved." Before she could react, the sound of a door creaked open behind her, sending shivers down her spine. Her heart thumped loudly in her chest as she turned, bracing herself for whatever lay behind. A figure stood in the doorway, a woman, with hollow cheeks and eyes that glistened like darkened glass. Was this a ghost or a woman trapped in grief? Maddie couldn't tell. The woman's gaze pierced through to her core, a desperate mix of anguish and sorrow gripping Maddie's soul. Find them, she urged, her voice breaking like brittle glass. They are waiting for you to set things right. Who? Maddie pleaded, feeling the weight of her own confusion. What do you want from me? The woman took a step closer, her form wavering like a flame flickering in the wind. In that split second, her face morphed, revealing all the grief-stricken faces Maddie had seen before, the souls yearning for escape, desperate to be free. Unlock the memories, the woman whispered, pointing toward a chest at the foot of the room's dusty bed. Only then will you understand the price of their silence. With a shaky breath, Maddie approached the chest, heartbeat echoing in her ears. Whatever was inside felt like the key to everything. She hesitated, a gnawing doubt clawing at her insides. What if she was delving into darkness that should stay buried? But curiosity drove her forward. She knelt before the chest, hands trembling, and slowly lifted the lid. A blast of cold air erupted from within, swamping her, wrapping her in a frigid embrace. As she peered inside, a vision collided with her mind, a montage of screams, tears, and the unforgiving shadows of the past. She gasped, overwhelmed by the torrent of emotion surging from the chest. The storm outside intensified, rain hammering against the window, mirroring the chaos surging within her. What she found inside would challenge everything she believed. Would it lead her to the truth, or deeper into despair? With her heart racing and panic crawling up her throat, Maddie's fingers brushed over items that whispered tales of those long gone. What are you hiding? She murmured, knowing she was running out of time before the darkness would claim her once more. The shadows began to creep toward her, inching closer as she held her breath, caught between two worlds. Then, just as she felt the weight of despair closing around her, a sudden crash shattered the stillness. Would the storm finally reveal what lay hidden in the depths, or was she about to unleash something far worse? Maddie jumped at the sound, her heart racing like a wild stallion, pounding against her ribs. The crash had come from somewhere deeper in the house, mingling with the storm's ferocity outside. Fear gripped her, chaining her to the spot. What could that be? The shadows around her shifted again, coiling and wrapping like serpents eager to squeeze the life from their prey. She blinked, trying to shake the paralysis of fear, and then glanced back at the chest. Despite the lurking dread, something pulled her toward it. Maybe the noise was connected to whatever lay hidden inside. With a deep breath, she threw caution aside and reopened the lid. Inside was a disordered collection of trinkets, each one brimming with a story: an old diary, a cracked porcelain doll, a rusted locket. But it was the diary that drew her in, its leather cover worn and weathered. As she opened it, her fingers tingled, and she felt a sudden rush of energy. The inked words seemed alive, swirling and forming images in her mind: a family gathered around a dining table, laughter mingling with love, then, slowly, a darkness creeping in. Each page turned sent a chill down her spine, recounting a history of secrets, loss, and a desperate cry for help. Maddie, help us! The echo of the woman's voice reverberated through her, a haunting reminder of the unfinished business that lay all around her. A gust of wind blew through the room, sending a shiver down her spine. Suddenly, an angry flash of lightning illuminated the corners of the room, momentarily exposing the faces in the photographs, their pleading eyes staring into her very soul. One photo slipped from its frame, landing on the floor with a soft thud. She picked it up and froze. The faces were familiar. It was her family. The same girl with wild curls and sparkling eyes stood alongside a man and woman, her parents. Maddie? A voice whispered, this time from behind her. She spun around, the fear clawing at her throat, every hair on her body standing on end. No one was there, yet she could feel the presence of something, or someone, lurking just beyond her vision. The shadows deepened, swirling hungrily. Find the truth and set us free, the voice echoed again, both desperate and demanding. The storm howled outside, its fury rising like a monstrous beast. Her pulse quickened as she realized that whatever was hidden in this diary might be the key to liberating not just the spirits around her, but perhaps even herself. Maddie, the word was softer now, almost pleading. It wrapped around her, pulling her closer to the truth buried in the pages. She felt an unnatural compulsion to keep reading, compelled by the urgency of the situation. With trembling fingers, she turned to a page marked with a lock of hair, a strand so familiar and yet so distant that it was a heart-wrenching revelation, one that chipped away at the edges of her memory. As clarity began to dawn, a shadow flickered behind her. She could barely register it before a gust of cold air surged, sending the diary tumbling from her grasp and slamming it shut. A deep, guttural growl emanated from the corner of the room. Maddie's breath hitched, and a wave of realization crashed over her. She wasn't alone. Whatever had taken root in this forgotten place was ready to awaken. "What comes next?" she whispered, her voice barely a breath against the weight of the impending storm. As the shadow loomed larger, pulling her into its grasp, the realization struck like thunder: the past had opened its mouth, ready to consume her whole. The door banged violently against the wall again, but this time, something stood on the other side. Was it her family she'd uncovered, or a nightmare that had come alive? The shadows thickened, pulsing with life as she faced a new terror, and the gripping silence that followed was deafening. What had she unleashed? A moment of stillness stretched in the air, thick and suffocating. Maddie could feel the weight of the darkness enveloping her, creeping into her mind like a noxious fog. Her thoughts raced, a blend of dread and determination tangled tightly together. The door creaked, and in that heartbeat, her breath turned shallow. Footsteps echoed softly, methodically, as if anatomy and shadow had melded into one. She clutched the edge of the chest, the only thing anchoring her to some semblance of reality. "Maddie." The voice repeated, this time closer, urgent. A pulse quickened in her ears, louder than the storm. She dared to glance toward the door, half expecting to see faces she had longed to forget, yet craved to see just once more. Hope flared momentarily before being swallowed by dread, then the silhouette appeared. It was stark against the flickering light, tall, hunched, its features indistinct and distorted as if the shadows themselves sculpted the figure. Heart racing, she whispered, "Who are you?" "Maddie, I'm here." The voice strained, each word laced with a chilling familiarity, the kind that could crack glass. The air grew heavier, pushing down on her chest. "No," she murmured, shaking her head in disbelief. "You can't be here. You're gone." The figure stepped closer, its form rippled under the oscillating light. In the dimness, she thought she saw the glint of familiar eyes, a reflection of her own trapped in a body of despair. Clenching her fists, she willed herself to stand firm. She couldn't succumb to terror, not now. "Help us," the voice quivered, breaking like waves against her shields. "Who is us?" The question slipped out, her voice trembling, almost breaking. She needed clarity, a lifeline amid the chaos. The shadows shivered, twisting into grotesque shapes as if they were alive, hungry, waiting for their moment. A faint breeze grazed her cheek, carrying the scent of something sweet, almost like blooming roses, but beneath it lay the sharp tang of decay. "In the diary lies our truth, find it." The words rang out, echoing in the chamber of her heart. The room spun. The wind howled, a fierce reminder of the storm's rage outside, an echo of the turmoil brewing inside her. She was teetering on the edge of two worlds, reality and the eerie grasp of the unknown. With trembling resolve, she crouched to recover the diary, still lying shut on the floor where it had fallen, but as her fingers brushed against the worn cover, the growl returned, a fierce rumble that vibrated through her bones. Maddie's heart lurched. A dark shape started to swirl around her, tendrils of shadow were reaching, grasping for her, pulling her in. Panic flooded her system, and she swiped up the diary as if it held the key to her survival. "Stop!" she cried. "What do you want from me?" The figure's eyes glimmered brighter, and Maddie glimpsed something behind its depth and understanding, a burden, a pain so deep it threatened to consume her entirely. The shadows retreated momentarily, drawing back like a tide, but the relief was short-lived. The door shuddered, slamming shut once more, and in that instant, she felt the overwhelming urge to scream. But what would that accomplish? Instead, she broke the seal of the diary, feeling an electric surge as it opened. The words began to swirl, glowing faintly amidst the darkness, awakening lifetimes of sorrow that were not her own. As she turned the pages, the walls trembled, responding to the quiet storm within the book, but not all stories wanted to be told. Not all truths wanted to be set free. With every word she read, the shadows writhed until they coalesced into figures, specters of her family's past, their faces twisted in agony. Maddie realized this wasn't just an exploration of their pain, this was a confrontation. She had stepped into the heart of something primal and dark. Suddenly, a chilling laugh echoed from the depths of that shadow, slicing through her resolve. "Welcome home, Maddie," the voice hissed, the air heavy with malice. She staggered back, clutching the diary to her chest. Was she now part of this twisted tale? And as the shadows surged forward, she understood. Every page she turned changed everything she thought she knew. Maddie would have to confront the darkness not only of the house but of her own heart, that if she didn't uncover the truth soon, they might all be trapped together forever. How could she hope to escape the nightmare where the past and present collided? She had to find the answer before it was too late, but where was the truth? Would it lead her to her family's salvation or to her demise? Time was running out. Maddie's fingers trembled as she turned the pages, her heart pounding like a war drum. Each word felt like a pulse in the room, resonating with the darkness that clung to her skin. Shadows flickered in a frenzy around her, morphing into anguished faces that were both familiar and alien. She couldn't look away. There was an unholy attraction to the pain they exuded, like a moth circling a dying flame. "Find the truth," the shadowy figure rasped, its form unstable, now almost hovering beside her. "It's the only way to save us." The diary felt alive, vibrating with a hidden energy. The swirling letters on the pages pulsed with a rhythm, and for a moment, she was mesmerized, the chaos outside fading as everything narrowed to the words beneath her fingertips. But then the shadows lunged, their breath hot and rancid with despair, like a wave crashing against a wall. "No!" Maddie recoiled, grounding herself with a jolt of adrenaline. The pages thudded as she turned them faster, desperate to find something, anything that would unveil the secret held tightly within. As the ink bled into the air, a story began to unfold. Family gatherings filled with laughter suddenly twisted into bitter confrontations. Secrets wrapped in darkness revealed themselves, choking her with their emotional weight. The laughter faded, replaced by echoes of anger, regret, and betrayal. She felt each emotion seep through her, anchoring her to a reality that was both haunting and familiar. A chilling gust swept through the room, extinguishing the flickering light, plunging her into deeper blackness. She gasped, struggling against the tightening grip of dread clawing at her throat. The haunting figures loomed closer, their whispers merging into a terrifying chorus. "Why did you leave us? Why did you forget?" they implored, their eyes hollow but filled with an expectation that she couldn't ignore. Maddie's breath hitched. It was as if each phantom knew her every fault, every hidden regret. The moments she had tried to bury rose up, fierce and unrelenting. She realized she stood not only before their shadowed sorrow but before her own. "Show me," she breathed, the words barely escaping. It was a prayer, an invocation for clarity amidst the storm of memories. Suddenly, the diary seized her attention, the words across the pages flashing like a strobe light. An image formed in her mind, her childhood home, the phantom outlines of family nestled within its walls, laughter and arguments spilling from the presence of unseen hearts. A memory painted in shades of joy and despair. But just as she felt herself being pulled into this visceral scene, the air thickened, crushed with a darkness that stung her eyes and made her stomach turn. A whisper curled against her ear, sweet and poisonous. "It's not just a memory, Maddie, it's a trap." With wide eyes, she looked up, and the room trembled. The walls seemed to pulse as the shadows writhed angrily, their collective consciousness furious, hungry for retribution. "Enough!" Maddie cried out, her voice stronger than she felt. She couldn't let them consume her. She fought against the encroaching dark, gripping the diary tightly, and shouted, "I want to be part of this nightmare. Not anymore." The shadows recoiled, their forms flickering like flames, surprised by her defiance. And in that silence, a single word echoed in the stillness of the room. Truth. The echoes faded into a hushed breath, leaving her heart racing in the shadowy hush. What did it mean? What truth remained yet to be uncovered? A sense of dread curled in her stomach, mixing with an ember of resolve that flickered just beneath the surface. Find me, urged the figure next to her, its voice merging with the ambient silence. Unlock the darkness, Maddie. Only together can we conquer what binds us. With renewed determination, Maddie dredged through the pages, heedless of the lingering shadows. She was no longer merely a vessel of sorrow, she was ready to confront the truth, no matter how terrifying it could be. The clock was ticking, and with every heartbeat, time slipped through her fingers like sand. What else lay hidden in the pages? Would she find the strength to unlock the secrets that chained them all? The lingering question filled the air with tension as she prepared to dig deeper into the story that threatened to swallow her whole. Help us, the whisper echoed once more, clearer now, more urgent, as if 100 voices united to press on. And just as desperation threatened to overwhelm her, the shadows lurked closer, urging her on, burdening her with a relentless force that demanded a reckoning. As the diary glowed with an eerie light, Maddie took a breath, steeling herself against the encroaching dread. The answers awaited her. The truth could no longer stay buried, but could she handle what she would find? The next turn of the page beckoned, and time hung thick in the air, tantalizing her with secrets that begged to be told. Maddie took a breath, her heart drumming in her ears as she pressed her fingertips against the glowing pages of the diary. It pulsed with a sinister light, each heartbeat in sync with the shadows that pressed ever closer. She turned the next page, her hands shaking wildly as the air around her thickened with anticipation. The text blurred momentarily, reforming into distorted images that flickered like a broken film reel. The room shifted, the shadows melting into one another, swirling into a dark vortex that drew her in. All at once, she saw her family again, their faces etched with anguish, love twisted into something grotesque and manipulative. An argument erupted in the air, voices clashing, fists raising. The raw, visceral energy threatened to consume her. Stop. Please, just stop. Maddie cried, clutching the diary as if it were her lifeline. But the chaos intensified, growling shadows snatched at her clothes and skin. You let us down. They howled, their words like knives carving through her spine. No. She squeezed her eyes shut, willing the sound to fade, but it clung to her like a malignant growth. I didn't forget you. Then why is your heart heavy with regret? A soft voice whispered from the swirling darkness. It was sweet, almost tender, yet edged with the chilling truth she couldn't avoid. Maddie opened her eyes, and the room fell silent, as if her words had somehow tethered the shadows for a moment. She could feel the eyes watching her, waiting for a response, but she was at war with herself. The diary had shown her truths, ugly as they were, and now they stood before her, demanding recognition. Because I buried my memories, she confessed, the words slipping out like water through clenched fists. I thought I could move on, that forgetting would ease the pain. A low rumble echoed through the darkness, shaking the walls. Forgetting is not freedom, it's silence. And in silence, we all suffer. Suddenly, a single page burst into flames, illuminating the room with a fiery glow. Maddie gasped, fear gripping her heart. She tried to extinguish it, but the fire swept through the pages hungrily, revealing frantic scribbles. The words danced around her, revealing secrets, betrayals and actions that led to this despair. She braced herself as fresh tears stung her eyes. While the details were vague, she remembered them clearly. A family torn apart by fear and guilt. A pact made in haste, secrets buried under layers of shame. What do I do with this? She shouted into the darkness, feeling utterly lost. Reveal it. The shadows cried, their voices growing louder with fierce urgency. Uncover our history. Set us free. Maddie shook her head, terror coursing through her. But what if it destroys me? A shadow stepped forward, its form stabilizing into a familiar figure. It was her younger self, eyes wide with innocence, pleading. You must face the truth, Maddie. If you don't, we'll all be trapped forever. She took a step back, heart racing. I can't do it alone. Together, we stand. The shadows cried as one, a chorus wrapping around her. The fire flickered, the shadows flickered, and for a moment, she was overwhelmed with memories of laughter, warmth, loss, and love. Maddie's resolve surged. Okay, I'll do it. I'll uncover the truth. With trembling hands, she opened to the burning page, her heart pounding in her chest. The words came alive, forming an outline of danger and revelation that threatened to shatter her world. She knew it held everything, a key to freeing them, but it could also unleash a wrath she could scarcely comprehend. As she read, a chilling laugh echoed around her, and the shadows pulsed with life. Welcome to the beginning of your end, Maddie. The room twisted violently, flinging her into a whirlwind of darkness as the secrets of her family surged like a storm, threatening to swallow her whole. What awaited her in the churning depths of that forgotten truth? Would she emerge stronger, or would the darkness claim her forever? The darkness swallowed Maddie whole, wrapping her in cold tendrils that whispered secrets long since buried. She struggled to breathe, the weight of her past pressing down like a storm cloud ready to unleash its fury. Face it. A voice screeched, ripping through the noise like glass shattering. It was a reminder, a demand, echoing in the void around her. The diary's flames flickered above, casting ghostly shadows that danced like mocking phantoms. Maddie felt her heart quicken, like it was about to leap out of her chest. She could almost see the memories she had buried springing to life in front of her, their specters hungry for acknowledgement. The anger, the tears, the guilt that felt like barbed wire twisting around her throat. Remember. The shadows roared, and the air crackled with urgency. Remember what you did. Remember the pact. With a resolve that surprised even her, Maddie snapped her eyes open. In that moment, the chaotic vortex calmed. She was no longer in a swirling black void but standing in her childhood home. The room was dimly lit, the air thick with the scent of dust and decay. Time had stopped, allowing her to relive the horrors tucked away behind heavy curtains. Mom. Her voice trembled as she called towards the kitchen. The memories flickered like a broken film reel, a snippet of laughter, a flash of tears. Her mother stood by the sink, eyes glazed, scrubbing at dishes that seemed to multiply no matter how much she scrubbed. Was it anger or sorrow that cloaked her figure? Maybe both. Maddie. Her mother turned, confusion etched across her face. Why don't you ever talk about it? What? Maddie felt a tugging at her heart. The question hung in the air, heavy like a stone. The urge to flee warred with the need to confront what she had avoided for so long. About the night her mother began, but then a dark wave crashed over the memory, engulfing the kitchen in shadows. Suddenly, they were in the living room, the fireplace crackling with ominous intent. Do you remember what happened after the argument? The voice asked again, this time uncomfortably familiar. It was the darker side of herself, that voice of guilt whispering, you can't run from this. Maddie choked. The faces of her family flashed in her mind like snapshots, a father's scowl, tears streaming down her sister's cheeks, echoes of harsh words filling the void. It had been a night of chaos, fiery tempers exploding without warning. Maddie remembered the pledges they had made, the price of silence. What did we agree to? She murmured, her chest tightening at the thought, each memory creeping closer with sinister intent. Everything comes with a price, Maddie, the shadows hissed, edging closer until they were just a breath away. Unlock this door, and be prepared for the fallout. Suddenly, the diary lay at her feet, pages tumbling like leaves caught in a gust of wind. It opened to a page that seemed to blaze not with fire, but with black ink pooling like ink on a canvas. She leaned in closer, the words carving themselves into her mind. Expose the truth, it read. Or let it consume you. A sharp pain shot through her, pulling her toward that burning page. No. She cried out, instinct taking over. But the shadows clawed, intertwining with her memories, demanding she choose. Don't you want to be free? They taunted, their laughter shrill and cruel. Don't you want to know what you buried? The chaos roared around her, threatening to drag her under once more. But Maddie stood her ground, heart racing. Could she truly face the devastation? Or would this unravel everything she held dear? As the shadows advanced, the darkness whispered, beckoning her to take the leap. This is where it begins, Maddie. What horrific truths would she unearth? And when the walls of silence finally crumbled, would she still be able to recognize the girl who had walked in? Maddie's breath quickened as her heart thudded painfully against her ribcage. She could feel the shadows closing in like a predator stalking its prey. The weight of years spent shoving the truth into the dark pushed against her. What now? She whispered, her voice trembling as she stood before the diary that pulsed with a life of its own. The air thickened with anticipation. The looming specters sneered, their midnight faces twisting in delight, as they began to merge with the memories she had tried so hard to bury. Each one felt like a nail being driven into her heart, each scream echoing in her ears, demanding release. Don't you want to know what happened that night? They hissed, wrapping around her. Maddie closed her eyes against the cruel light of dawn peeking through her memory. The more she fought, the stronger the shadows became. Mom, she said, desperation clawing at her throat. Help me. But her mother's apparition simply stood, dishcloth in hand, a figure frozen in time, bound to the past like Maddie herself. Her mother's eyes bore sorrow and a cautious flicker of fear. Sometimes forgetting feels safer, doesn't it? Maddie's entire body shook. What she had once accepted as a refuge now felt like a haunting prison. The shadows pressed closer, their whispers intensifying. The truth will set you free, but it will also break you apart. Terror wrapped around her, wound tighter with each moment. I can't. She cried. Yet the urge to grasp the truth burned in her veins. The wheezing breaths of anxiety filled her soul with dread. What if uncovering it all was worse than the quiet hell she endured? Just then, the diary's pages fluttered wildly as if caught in a storm. The ink began to ripple, forming words that writhed like serpents. You made a promise, it read, jagged and raw. In shadows and silence, speak now or be forever lost. Maddie's knees buckled as she struggled to comprehend its meaning. The pact they had made was real, a monster spawned from shared guilt and betrayal. She had always thought silence would protect her family, but what kind of protection came with chains strangling her conscience? Was it worth it? The shadows sneered, their mocking laughter echoing off the walls of her mind. Keeping the truth hidden. What did it cost you? Memories swirled, churning like a storm. There was her sister, hair tangled and wild, sobbing in the corner. Her father's rage, a thunderous clap that shattered everything. They had stood together, united in their silence, but how long could they stay united in their lies? Break the silence, the voice whispered again, more insistent now. Maddie felt the urge clawing at her, begging for release, but at what price? Maddie, you must choose, came her mother's soft voice, breaking through the tumult. What do you want to unearth? The past or your freedom? Maddie trembled, caught between the two worlds. Each second felt like an eternity. 5 years had passed since that night, but the shadows felt fresh, pulsing with pain. Would exposing that night, tearing down the walls she had built, free her? Or would it destroy the fragile bonds left? As Maddie's hand hovered over the pages, her breath caught. She could sense the lurking presence of every secret, every fear, waiting with bated breath for her decision. The weight of the diary seemed to double, anchoring her to the floor. Choose wisely, Maddie, the shadows echoed around her, a chilling promise wrapped in velvet terror. Your time is running out. And with a final spark of desperation, she ripped the page from the diary, the words staining her fingers with dark ink as she braced herself. What awaited her in the unveiled truth? Would she emerge stronger or shattered into a million pieces? As the echoes of the past reached the surface, Maddie felt a sharp crack in the air. A laughter that wasn't her own rang out, taunting her. The real fire is yet to come, Maddie, are you ready? With that, the shadows danced back, leaving her hanging in the balance, the diary crackling with energy, her heart a potent drum of impending chaos. Whatever lay ahead needed to be faced, but could she summon the courage to confront the brutal truth? And just as the darkest night folded over her, obscuring the light, a voice whispered a name filled with dread. Rachel. What awaited Maddie in her search for truth? Would the price she finally had to pay be more than she could bear? The darkness tangled around Maddie like wet sheets, clinging to her skin as she stood on the precipice of revelation. Words from the diary pulsed through her mind, and the shadows pressed inward, urging her closer to the flame of truth. With a shuddering breath, she tore the next page from the diary, her heart thrumming loudly. The words blurred for a moment before solidifying into shapes, damning truths woven with memories, sealed with invisible ink of fear. The echoes of those long-lost voices screamed in her ears, rising above the tumult of the storm outside. Rachel. It poured from her mouth, pulling her deeper into the chaos of the past. Maddie's heart pounded fiercely, each thud a reminder that this wasn't just about her family's pain, it was about her own fractured soul, the girl she had locked in a dark room and left to languish. Unlock the truth. The shadows hissed, swimming nearer, their forms twisting around her like snakes determined to suffocate the very air she breathed. But determination burned inside her. This was her moment, or it would swallow her whole. As the ink bled into life, fragments of that horrible night unveiled themselves in vivid detail, a memory of Rachel, the vibrant laughter that once filled their home, now replaced by silence. Both Rachel and Maddie's innocence shattered under the weight of words unsaid, secrets untold. A hot rush of guilt swept through her. I never spoke the truth, she cried, a fierce light igniting in her soul. Speak. The shadows urged, their voices a cacophony of anguish and wrath. Maddie steadied herself, the raging storm outside teasing at the edges of her conviction. We made a pact to forget. We thought it would protect us. Her hands trembled as she gripped the diary tighter, each letter on the page glowing like a beacon. But it only chained us to our fears. The shadows pulsed, raging against the barrier of her resolve. Did it protect you? They roared, as the specters of her family emerged from the darkness, faces contorted in anguish, eyes pleading. Did it make you whole? No. Maddie yelled, tears streaming down her cheeks, each sob a release of years of pent-up grief and anger. It only buried us deeper. As she spoke, the shadows recoiled, their connection dampened by her humility. A soft glow emanated from the torn page, illuminating the room, dispelling the shadows for a heartbeat. And then came the roar of the storm, demanding her attention once more. Help me, a voice wept, softer this time. It was Rachel's voice, a melody wrapped in clarity, bleeding through the vortex of chaos. You must face our history, dear sister. In that flicker of light, Maddie stood tall. Her body no longer trembled, instead, it buzzed with purpose. She took another breath, ready to confront the truth residing within, the truth that lived behind their family's silence. With every ounce of strength, she began to speak aloud their untold story, weaving the history of pain, regret, and love that bound them. That night, we lost everything, she whispered, feeling warmth die deep within her. But forgetting made us lose ourselves too. We need to remember. Only then can we heal. The shadows writhed, their faces morphing into every lost soul she had encountered. And in their chaos, she felt a wave of relief, clarity emerging amidst the confusion. Trust the light. Rachel's spirit echoed, melding with the energy building inside her and warmth that defied the cold darkness. With a rush of adrenaline, Maddie reclaimed her voice. This is our truth. And we won't be silent anymore. She felt the bond between her and the spirit strengthening, forging a chain that lit the way through the suffocating darkness. The weight of our silence ends. Our pain ends. The shadows screamed louder, but she pressed on. We loved too deeply to let guilt win. We have fought too long to only remember the hurt. The glow brightened, radiating from the diary, nudging the darkness back further. Maddie's words filled the air with healing light, and the shadows began to dissolve. Faces transformed into smiles, laughter spilling out of them. Like the sound of rivers rushing back home. She could see them, her family, like vines springing back after a drought, building this moment together. Set us free, Maddie. They cheered, hands reaching out toward her, breaking their shackles and clasping hers in unity. As the storm outside faded, replaced by a warm, comforting breeze, she felt herself lift, surrounded by the love of her family. The heat of the shadows evaporated, leaving only echoes of their sorrow merging with light and hope, and just as quickly as the chaos began, it was over. Maddie stood alone now, the diary resting in her hands, each word still pulsing with energy. In the distance, the sun began to rise, painting the world outside with new beginnings. "Thank you, Rachel," she murmured, a mix of grief and gratitude flowing through her. She turned to leave the house that had kept so many secrets, a smile lighting up her face. She was free, and that was her farewell to darkness. As Maddie stepped into the sunlight, she felt the warmth wash over her, a feeling she hadn't known in years. But she realized there were far more stories to unearth, stories awaiting her, and a world beyond shadows begging to be told. Now more determined than ever, Maddie knew she had to share her journey, to connect with others, to heal together. Hey, listen up. If you felt the emotional power of Maddie's story, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Hit that like button now to fuel the algorithm and help more people find their way to these exclusive tales. Don't forget, flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. Your voice means everything. And if you really get what it's all about, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Let us keep the momentum going. You won't want to miss what's next.